Hello children, I am your teacher Ghazala Kamran. This is your English language lesson for class 6 and the topic for this video is sentence, phrases and clauses. So let's begin the lesson. First, look at what a sentence is. You all know what a sentence is. You have been reading and writing sentences. Let's read the definition once again. The sentence is a group of words that contain a subject and a verb and makes complete sense by itself without depending on any other word or group of words to do so. For example, she cleaned her room in the morning. Now here in this sentence we can see that it has a subject, she, and a verb. The verb is cleaned and it makes a complete sense by itself. When we read the sentence, we can understand what it means. So any group of words which when read completely convey the meaning, or we can understand what the sentence is telling us, then that group of words is a sentence. Now let's look at what phrases and clauses are. First, a phrase. A phrase is a group of words that does not contain a subject and a verb and does not make complete sense. So a phrase is just group of words without a subject, without a verb. For example, at the village, in the evening, an affectionate father. So here in these examples we can see at the village there is no subject, there is no verb. Same here in this example, in the evening, and here an affectionate father. There is no verb here. And if we only read these phrases, we do not understand what it means. Each of them is a group of words, but it does not contain a subject and a verb, and we cannot understand what they mean. So a phrase is a group of words that does not contain a subject and verb and does not make sense. Now we come to a clause. A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb and is part of a sentence. For example, because he was late. Here, he is a subject, late, was is a verb. It is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, but it does not make complete sense. It can be part of a sentence. When we read this example, because he was late, we can understand that it is part of a sentence. It does not tell the whole thing on its own. When we read this, we think why he was late. This does not tell the reason. We can understand that the reason should come before this part of group of words. The reason should come before this group of words. Although it has a subject and a verb also, but it does not completely tell what it means. So, such a group of words is a clause. It tells us something but not completely. It does not make complete sense. So, now we can understand the difference between a clause and a phrase. A clause and phrase can both be part of a sentence. Like here in this example, she cleaned her room in the morning. She cleaned her room is a clause because this part has a subject, she is a subject, and cleaned is a verb. Her room is the object, so this makes a clause. This is part of a sentence with its own subject, with its verb and its object, and this makes it a clause. But following this comes another group of words, which is in the morning. Even if we remove this group of words, in the morning, she cleaned her room would make sense and can make a sentence on its own. By adding in the morning, we tell more information about she, our subject. But if we keep in the morning our phrase alone and we remove the clause from it, then on its own this phrase in the morning cannot mean anything. So to make complete sense, we need the whole sentence. For the phrase to mean anything, it should be joined with this clause. So we see here that a sentence can contain a clause and it can also contain a phrase. And I hope by now you understand what a clause is and what a phrase is and what is the difference between these two. Okay, here is a small exercise to consolidate what we have just studied. Read the following and decide whether they are phrases, clauses or sentences. Write P, C or S against each phrase, clause or sentence. Number 1. The beautiful dance. The words beautiful dance, what are they? Is it a phrase? Is it a clause? Or is it a sentence? You can easily tell that this is not a sentence. Now, if it is a clause, it must have a subject and a verb in it. Now we can see that there is subject and verb, they are missing here. They are not present. So this makes it only a group of words which depend on something else, a clause, to make complete sense. So what do you say this is? This is a phrase, clause or sentence. Right, this is a phrase. It is a group of words dependent on another clause to make sense of it. It can be part of a sentence, but on its own it does not tell us anything. In the same way, let's look at number 2. I forgot all about it. Now you have to decide whether this is a phrase, clause or a sentence. Can you find a subject and a verb in it? Now you have studied what phrases, clauses and sentences are. Decide which one it is. In the same way, number 3. Don't waste time over silly matters. Number 4. While she was cleaning the dressing table. Number 5. If he writes at all. Let's look at the answers now. Okay, as we had already decided, the beautiful dance is a phrase. Number 2, I forgot all about it. Here we have a subject, I, we have a verb, forgot, and an object. So this makes it a complete sentence. It tells us something, it conveys the idea completely. This group of words makes complete sense, making this a sentence. Number 3. Don't waste time over silly matters. Here again we can see that we understand what the sentence or this group of words means. It has a subject, it has a verb, so we can say that this is a sentence. Number 4. While she was cleaning the dressing table. Here we can see that some information is missing here. This group of words does not completely give the message to us, and we can say that this can be part of a sentence. Although subject and verb are present here, but still we can sense that this idea is incomplete. So we can easily say that this is a clause. Number 5. If he writes at all. Again here we can see that subject and verb are present, but still the group of words fail to give complete meaning on their own, and we can sense that this is incomplete information. This can be part of a sentence. If some other words were added to it, then this would make a complete sentence, but on its own this can be a clause. Now that you understand what sentence, phrase and clause are, let's see what main and subordinate clauses are. A main clause has a subject and a verb and makes complete sense. Like here, the example we have is, he missed the train yesterday because he was late. You have studied about sentences and clauses, and you can easily tell that here we have two clauses. He is a subject, missed is a verb. He missed the train yesterday. This tells us some information, we can understand it. It makes complete sense. But here is another part of the sentence, because he was late. Here again we have another subject and another verb. If we keep this part of the sentence apart, if we take it out, these group of words still make complete sense on their own. So this is a clause which makes complete sense on its own, and therefore it is the main clause. When we look at the other clause, because he was late, we can see that still it has a subject, it has a verb, but this clause does not make sense on its own. It depends on the first part of the sentence to complete in meaning. So a clause which depends on another part of the sentence to complete in meaning is a subordinate clause. As in the first example, we had seen that the sentence can be made up of a clause and a phrase. Here in this example, we can see that a sentence can be made up of two clauses. One can be the main clause and the other can be a subordinate clause. So let's do one exercise to strengthen this idea about main clause and subordinate clause. You have to read each of these sentences and identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. Sentence 1. Since it was a hot day, the children played indoor. Now, you can easily detect the two parts of the sentence by the placement of the comma here. Now, you have to decide which clause is the main clause and which is the subordinate clause. The clause which makes complete sense on its own, which does not need the other part, is the main clause, and the one which needs the other part of the sentence to complete in meaning is the subordinate clause. So as we can see in number 1, the children played indoor makes complete sense on its own, so this is the main clause, and since it was a hot day needs to be read along with the main clause, so this makes it the subordinate clause. Now you have to do 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 2 sentence is, when the dance performance was over, everyone clapped. Number 3. Do you speak loudly as the child is sleeping? Number 4. You will be surprised at what you have won. Number 5. If you come early, we will go to the beach. Let's check out the answers now. Okay, here. Since it was a hot day is the subordinate clause. The children played indoor is the main clause. Number 2. When the dance performance was over, everyone clapped. Here we can see that the main clause is when the dance performance was over, and the subordinate clause is everyone clapped. In number 3, do you speak loudly as the child is sleeping? Here, do you speak loudly is the main clause, and as the child is sleeping is the subordinate clause. Number 4, you will be surprised at what you have won. Now here, you will be surprised is the main clause, and at what you have won is the subordinate clause. Number 5, if you come early, we will go to the beach. We will go to the beach is the main clause. It makes sense on its own. And if you come early is the subordinate clause. After studying about phrases and clauses, let's look at what noun phrases and noun clauses are. It's nothing difficult. You just have to, if you understand phrases and clauses, then this would not be any difficult for you, any problem for you. Noun phrase, a group of words that does the function of a noun in a sentence is called a noun phrase. For example, his sudden resignation is a mystery. So a group of words which is a phrase, if it does the work of a noun or it takes the place of a noun, then it is a noun phrase. Like here, if you ask the question what is a mystery, then the name of the mystery is his sudden resignation. So here this phrase is doing the work of a noun. It is naming what is the mystery. So as this is doing the work of a noun, it is called a noun phrase. Same here with the noun clause. A subordinate clause that does the work of a noun is called a noun clause. So whenever a subordinate clause is doing the work of a noun or is taking the place of a noun, then it is called a noun clause. For example, he says that it will not work. So here we can say that this part of the sentence, the subordinate clause, is a noun clause. Now we have another exercise. Identify the noun phrase in the following sentences. Number 1. We discovered John's plans. Number 2. An oral lesson can be interesting. Number 3. Don't give me such a black look. Number 4. This is an old-fashioned idea. Number 5. The hard day's work tired him out. Now, as we can see in this exercise, we discovered John's plans. John's plans are group of two words, which is a phrase. Number 2. Oral lesson. An oral lesson is a phrase. Number 3. A black look is a phrase here in this sentence. Number 4. This is an old-fashioned idea. Here, old-fashioned is a phrase. Number 5. The hard day's work tired him out. The phrase in this sentence is hard day's work. Here is another practice exercise. Pick out the noun clause in the following sentences. Number 1. We wondered what we should tell him. Number 2. They told us when we should start. Number 3. They learned how they should use the machine. Number 4. We found out when the plane would arrive. And number 5. He cannot remember what he should bring. Number 1. We wondered what we should tell him is a clause. Number 2. They told us when we should start. Here, when we should start is the clause. Number 3. They learned how they should use the machine. How they should use the machine is the clause. We found out when the plane would arrive. Here, when the plane would arrive is the clause here. Number 5. He cannot remember what he should bring. What he should bring is the clause. I hope you found today's lesson easy and you will enjoy doing this homework. You have to do this exercise in your English language copy and submit it in the office on Tuesday between 9 and 11 a.m. You will be granted marks on the work you do in your copies and you submit them. Here is one exercise. Read the following and decide whether they are phrases, clauses or sentences. Write P, C or S against each phrase, clause or sentence. We have done one exercise like this in the lesson, so this should not be a problem for you. The sentences are: have you ever seen a rhino? Number 2, a new day. Number 3, in spite of their loyalty. Number 4, what a pleasant surprise it was. Number 5, as he walked along the road. Number 6, although they pretended not to hear the loud protests. Number 7, some more sheets of paper. This is the end of this lesson. Do your homework in your English language copy and submit on Tuesday in the school office between 9 and 11. Stay safe. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.